Hi, everyone. Welcome back to a segment that I like to call You Yes You in the back with your hand raised. Sorry, I don't know your name yet. What's your question? We softballed the introduction of this segment, 2 months ago, and
Yes.
then never followed it up.
Correct.
And we had a little bit of a scheduling snafu again. So the magnanimous Dr. Linton is not here with us today. So it is. I will be your host. I am Mr. Walter. Oh, do I need a dumb thing?
No,
Oh
not
no.
for questions.
Oh, good.
No, not for questions.
I'll be your host. I'm Mr. Walter.
And I am Mr. Abbers, though you should have had a dumb thing ready to go for today's scheduled
Well,
episode.
the dumb thing is that I don't have a dumb thing ready. So we're just going to go through some of the questions that you lovely people have sent in and see what we can make of them without the magnanimous doctor. Our first question is from Kelsey, and Kelsey asks, what is your favorite cryptid?
I've watched so much History Channel to prepare myself for this. So much History Channel from the aughts, and mostly just the aughts. Did you
Was
have
it History Channel or Discovery Channel?
I
Because
feel it
Discovery
was-
Channel was far worse about
the 20 teens?
Bigfoot hunting and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Ancient aliens. That was
Oh,
Discovery, right?
We should do some ancient alien-esque
Myth busting on
debunking,
here.
yeah. Favorite. So cryptids, for those of you who aren't aware, are things like Bigfoot or Loch Ness Monster or other animal creatures that are supposedly not recognized by science, but there is some evidence, quote unquote, evidence more being eyewitness accounts. And it's mostly down to how trustworthy are the eyewitness accounts. Although some of the evidence, is it the Zimmerman film footage of Bigfoot? That's some of the most convincing.
I don't know
Have
any
you
of
seen that? It's like old, 16 millimeter film.
Is that the Bigfoot walking at
walking.
the edge of the party or whatever it was?
No, this is in a national park. I thought that was captured during the 50s or 60s.
I'm probably conflating some things in my head.
Yeah. I mean, it's very convincing footage. There's no deep fake AI back then. And it's been looked over so many times and analyzed by anthropologists and other forensics experts. And I've forgotten most of what they've said about that. Anyway, my favorite cryptid, I've got two I'll mention. One of them is the Mothman. That I think it's New Jersey or somewhere out on the East Coast. He hangs out
East Coast.
He hangs out on bridges, and he's like a
moth the size of a person.
a person with big old wings like a moth. And I don't know if he preyed on people or if he was kind of like not a savior,
He's
but
one of your favorites, but you don't know.
no.
if
Well,
he's
I
good
haven't.
or bad.
I haven't really looked up cryptids much lately, so
That's fair.
That's the one that comes to mind. The other one that was featured on one of these videos were, and this was actually my favorite probably. There is this phenomenon called rods, and it's said that in certain footage, TV, you can see a rod of light come into frame and then zoom out it looks like it's at a really high rate of speed. And my favorite hypothesis behind this was that these were extra dimensional beings just popping into our three-dimensional space for a split second, then popping out. They were just intersecting our plane of existence. And they came about, some of these were said to come about during footage of a tornado. And so maybe they're using the tornado's energy as a power source, and that's why they're more seen during tornadoes. They actually brought on this famous weather broadcaster who was broadcasting, and he's like, I don't know what I'm doing here. I guess I'm getting paid a pretty nice sum just to kind of talk about what I actually saw. And as for what you think, I don't know if there's any science behind it.
There's a lot of cryptids that I like, but I guess I don't know a whole lot about a lot of them. Chupacabra is kind of a fun one.
Yeah, chupacabra.
And then, of course, you've got your standard ones like Nessie, Bigfoot, etc. All of these with lovely folktales. I think my favorite is probably the Wendigo.
I've never heard of that one. What's that one?
The Wendigo it's a Native American cryptid, or I guess they wouldn't consider it a cryptid. It's more of like a demon to them. And it's a nature demon. It's something that possesses people or that people turn into when they resort to cannibalism.
How often do they have to resort to cannibalism?
I don't know, but this is something that's popped up in several cultures. There's some weird stories about people being arrested for cannibalism and just saying, I'm a Wendigo, when they were arrested, even though like it's like very random. So there's like this Wendigo psychosis that surrounds it as well.
Oh, people believe that they are when
people,
they need,
yeah.
it's
really fascinating.
Other people,
and then some depictions of it veer more towards like the Navajo skinwalker type deal, which is more of like a shape-shifting creature. So if you're a Wendigo, it's like you're a forest creature that feeds on people. There's some really interesting folklore behind that.
Is this at all related to Dracula and vampires, or is that a completely
well? That's
different thing?
Completely the other side of the world. So
right.
I don't know. I would be fascinated to look into if there's any parallels between old vampire mythos and these, because as far as I know, these aren't undead. They're not considered to be.
Oh, okay, yeah. They're just like cursed.
They're cursed, yeah. And I suppose vampires are cursed as well, but not in an undead way.
Yeah.
On that note, there's a lot of different branches you could take on the vampire mythos. Does vampires count as cryptids? At what point do you draw the line between cryptid and something like that? Because at a certain point in history, like a werewolf could have been considered a cryptid. Because there's like that famous instance in France in the Napoleonic era where like this big black wolf, which everyone thought was a werewolf. I think it was a big black wolf, or they're not sure exactly what it was, just kept on popping up in the countryside in France and absolutely murdering people. And there were sightings of it all over the place, and they brought in a whole bunch of people from different countries to try and hunt the werewolf, and they never found it. I think they made a garbage movie about that recently. Linton and I will probably have to watch that one
next time
you're out of reach. But like, at a certain point, you could consider that a type of cryptid, or
you just need someone claiming to have seen it.
Have seen it recently, yeah. I guess no one's claiming to see vampires recently.
And usually with a cryptid, there is like a subculture of followers or fans of it, I think, and that kind of keeps the mythos and the legend going, and it keeps it in the pop culture.
Yeah, the idea that it's never confirmed feeds the idea that it must exist and that I can be the one to find it.
Like most conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
Like, not everyone can know about this. Just me and my special group of people.
Exactly.
We have the know-how to hunt and figure out more about this cryptid.
Right. So thank you, Kelsey. That was a wonderful question. Our next question comes from Ryan. And Ryan says, do you ever think undersea colonization will happen? If so, part 2, what would it look like? And if not, part 3, what barriers would prevent this?
So, I think our episode that we were hoping to record today on population and population decline kind of informs this question.
Stay tuned for that one to drop later.
Stay tuned for that one, yeah. I'm going to host that one. I think that undersea colonization, I don't hear anyone talking about it. I'm sure people are.
I don't either. Yeah.
And I'm not going to say I'm plugged into everything. I'm plugged into a lot of space and a lot of science stuff, and to try to keep tabs on what's happening. I have heard no one making a lot of buzz about we need to be focusing research on undersea colonization, on perfecting that technology.
Weird, right? Because you'd think with the billions of dollars we put into reaching escaping the atmosphere, reaching the stars, we would be able to overcome conceivably more simple problems of pressure and depth, something that's a lot closer and doesn't require giant rocket boosters and launching skyscrapers into the atmosphere.
Yeah.
That being said, it doesn't help with Elon Musk's whole vision for the future and a bunch of the other people on top. If you're not a Musk head or whatever, a muskrat, what would they call them?
Muskie?
If his followers are called muskrats, I feel like that might be derogatory.
Yeah. I won't use that term.
Okay.
Musk fans.
Musk fans. If you're following their vision, the vision is become a multi-planetary species so that if another big asteroid hits, we're not all gone. And if you are building societies at the bottom of the ocean, if a big meteor hits, I think you're still going to have problems, probably more problems than the people on land.
Depends on where it hits.
Depends on where it hits.
Tsunamis don't really affect the deep water. It only affects the shallow water.
The earthquake would still travel through the crust on the ocean floor, though, right?
Depends on how it's anchored to the seafloor.
Depends how it's anchored.
If it's just by tethers, you might be a little bit easier off. I guess the real question is how much research has been done into a self-sustained colony where you're not having to go to the surface.
That's true.
And because then you're that's a whole can of worms to figure out how to get. Are you using nuclear reactors to power everything?
Oh, I hope so. Thorium is the best.
And then so you use that as your power source, and then are you close enough to the surface that you can rely on sunlight to grow things? Or?
Yeah, that's another question. How deep is this ocean colony, or undersea colony, quote unquote? Is it just like reef deep?
Yeah, you're still in the. I forget my depth terms.
There are some lovely hotels you can go to where your hotel, diaphragm, where your hotel room is underwater and it's like a thick pane of glass so you can see the reef right outside it. Does that count as undersea? I don't think so. If you are fully undersea, how do you grow plants?
Yeah,
food?
Because you need light. You need a hefty energy source that you're not having to go back up to the surface often.
Yeah. So, I mean, you could use like UV bulbs and stuff like that, but you would want a way to manufacture your own down there if it's self-sustaining.
Yep.
You would want a power source for all of that, like we mentioned, probably a thorium reactor because you're smart. But also if something goes wrong with that reactor, goodbye ocean. Yeah, you don't want to poison the whole reef if you have to like jettison nuclear material. Anyways, so several fail-safes would have to be in there. It has, I hope what you're picking up, dear listeners, is that it has probably as many challenges as going to another system. The benefits of going to another system is you have access to the sun still.
Yep.
Whereas in the deep ocean you don't, although you don't have live soil, which you would have in the ocean.
And water in and of itself is a big resource. You can decompose that into oxygen and hydrogen,
and you can desalinate it.
Yep.
So
just being in the ocean, you've got a big resource right in your vicinity.
Yeah. But that's a fascinating idea. If so, what would it look like? I mean, we've kind of talked about this in terms of like energy consumption. It would probably look like living on a submarine, if we're being honest. Or maybe if you're getting bougie and spacious, something more like the ISS, but that's still pretty claustrophobic for most people. Living quarters, if when technology gets better, you might get what people think of as like, I don't know. When you imagine undersea society, what shape are the buildings?
It's all spherical
I always imagine spheres too. Why is that?
because pressure hates right angles.
That's fair.
Because it always wants to push those out into be curved surfaces. That's why all pressure vessels are spheres or takes on that.
Or roundish. Okay.
stuff.
So we're gonna have spherical buildings and or eggs. Prolate spheroids if you want to act like a lead. What is it?
lead?
A lead nucleus. Don't worry about that.
Okay.
That's a joke that Linton will get and nobody else will get. And I messed it up anyway. So, did we cover everything? I think we covered everything. Thank you, Ryan. That's a lovely question.
I just want to mention like the why is kind of what we'll cover in the population episode. That so preview or post view, depending on what order this gets released. World population is set to kind of plateau in the later part of the century. And so if people are worried that we're running out of land, I mean, the main thing that we're running out of is resources, certain unrenewable resources. We need better ways of recycling that or of better ways of getting energy because the way we're living right now, by and large, most research says we are not living sustainably. So I don't know if living in the ocean takes care of that. I'm going to use the argument that a lot of people use against space is that you kind of need to figure out the problems of surface living before you might go.
Right.
And not that, I mean, if you really want to, I mean, there might be the next billionaire may be like, the ocean is the way to go. And then we get all this R&D into sub-ocean living, and it spawns a lot of other useful technology, ways to be more sustainable while you're trying to live in a self-contained ecosystem or biosphere. So, maybe that is good to try to explore that so that we get some more innovative ideas for the rest of us on the surface. But as far as are we running out of space, like physical space, no, we can fit all of the people in the world in Rhode Island, shoulder to shoulder, easily.
Yeah. And you could give everyone a ranch-style house with land in Texas.
All 8 point some odd billion people.
Yeah.
Yep.
There's plenty of land. I guess part of why we aren't seeing a lot of research into this, like you mentioned, is the big space craze right now.
Yeah, it's all.
And if we had a planet that we wanted to get to that was subaquatic,
an ocean world.
If we wanted to be on Venus, because Venus has, 400 atmospheres of pressure?
We were just talking about this in science. It's
stupid.
like 90 times
you could
the
float
pressure.
a boat on Venus atmosphere.
I mean, you can't. Well, no, but it'd be crushed. Like it's like 900 meters below the surface of the ocean. That's the ground level pressure.
Right. So you could have a submarine floating somewhere in the middle of the atmosphere.
No.
If that's where.
No, it's
I guess it's not the density.
It's not the density of water. It's just the pressure equivalent of the water.
Well, what's the density at?
That I'd have to look at. It's still gaseous.
You could float something.
You could float something, which is why some people say that you could live on Venus, but just in the upper atmosphere with balloons.
So if we ever decide to do that, I'm going to guess we're going to start by attempting to live in the ocean, like how we started by attempting to live in remote deserts for gearing up for Mars.
Yeah, and then there was a couple of experiments with Biosphere and Biosphere 2 where they tried to have a group of people live in a self-contained ecosystem, completely sealed off from the outside. No air, no water, no food, all in this self-contained. And it was kind of like half survival, half psychological, half ecological experiment, and the findings are, and that might also be another interesting episode, because the findings are like kind of tainted, like they kind of cheated. I think it was like another billionaire or like millionaire who funded this.
Yeah.
It wasn't like a National Science Foundation or NASA or government funded thing. It was like this guy really wanted to do it to prove that it could be done, but it didn't work out like they hoped it would. So the findings from it are kind of iffy at best.
Skew with.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess maybe that'll be part of our predictions for next year.
What was the final question that he had? They're like sets of 3.
If not, what are the barriers of entry? And I think we've
Okay.
we've given plenty.
I think we're pretty good with that.
Okay. Well, thank you again for that lovely question. Our third question
Keep going.
comes from Ethan. And Ethan, I know you sent in a lot of questions. We're going to touch on some of these questions when the magnanimous Dr. Linton has returned to us, because we would love his input on some of these. But the fourth one that you sent in is a great little question that I think we can do. And Ethan asks, how come Microsoft can handle supposedly figuring out a new topological state to further quantum computing, while at the same time giving us the monstrosity that is Windows 11?
They're different divisions.
There you go. I'm glad we could help.
Yeah, I've been hearing of the developments of quantum computing, and the Microsoft one made a lot of waves. I feel like, though, there was one commenter or science communicator on YouTube and said that she is looking at the paper that released, and if you look at the research that was released and then the press releases, there's some inconsistencies, or like, how does that actually work? Or they mention something in the press release and they don't really explain it in the research. So if it is that much of a breakthrough, I think we will actually hopefully see some results within the following months. Or it might just be something they release to keep the investors happy and to maybe get some more investment.
Which is more likely.
Unfortunately, that's kind of how it works. Yeah.
Yeah.
As for Windows 11, what's your biggest complaint with Windows 11, Mr. Walter? Because I think the only time I use it is on these school computers. I've got still Windows 10.
I have Windows 11 at home.
Okay.
And it took a little bit to get used to some things. Like there's finicky things. Let's be honest. These are first world problems. This is an operating system that is completely and demonstrably fine. There is nothing really wrong with it. Every operating system in the next generation has better security than the last. It is annoying that it keeps on wanting you to sign up for all their online stuff, but you can just keep saying, no, I don't want to do that.
Yep.
It'll only pop up once every week or so, which is kind of annoying. They changed the button for how to rename files. Hold me back. I understand why it annoys people. It's like when you're playing a video game or something and they change the UI and now you have to push one more button to do something than you did before.
Yep.
It annoys you to no end that you have to push that one extra button. But this is just bottom level first world problems.
Yeah, we're creatures of habit, and
Exactly.
so you get into a groove with Windows XP back in the day,
Yeah.
and you're just grooving with that, and then Windows Vista comes along, and you're like, okay, that looks different, but it's not XP.
Yeah.
And then we've lived through how many operating systems since
Yes.
What did you grow up on?
I had XP.
Okay.
We had an older computer with XP.
Yep.
And then I believe we had a Vista at some point. And then we skipped all the way to Windows 8, was it? And then they
Sure.
did 8.1, and then they skipped 9 and did 10, right?
Something like that, yeah.
Because Windows is a genius.
Yes.
And can I just say, Ethan, Windows 11 is not nearly as terrible as Windows 8 was. Windows 8 decided that every computer that you used must behave like a phone, which is such a stupid assumption.
That's when they wanted to try to do the
everything was apps.
Yeah, yep.
Everything behaved like a phone or tablet, and it was garbage. So, yeah, be happy with what you have. Windows 11 is not that bad. But my condolences. If you're really sick of it, move to Linux. You'll be fine.
Do you have some computers that run Linux?
I have a Raspberry Pi.
Okay.
Cute little thing.
Yeah, I
need to do more with that.
I have no experience with it whatsoever.
I need to set up like a Minecraft server or something.
Sure. Or if you want to program it up so that it can send or send wireless HD video for video team, that'd be great.
I'll consider it. I thought about building one of those magic mirrors that people do.
You mentioned that.
Where you set up, if people who are listening don't know what this is, you set up a monitor with a double-sided mirror on the front of it, and you hook it up to a Raspberry Pi, and you can make it so that it's a mirror that will display things like the weather or things like that. You can have a video camera in there so that it recognizes when someone's looking at it and brings up the data. You can make it voice activated, etc. Raspberry Pis are very flexible so long as you know how to program Python or what's the base language, I guess.
I couldn't tell you.
A GNU or a Ganache or whatever you want to use. So thank you, Ethan. Again, we're not skipping the rest of your questions. We will come back to them for a later episode. Okay. Our last question from today comes from a different Ethan who asks, is buying the Switch 2 really worth it?
I don't know. I know nothing of the Switch 2.
Quick answer, no. Let's be honest, the only reason you're buying the Switch 2 is so you can buy the next Mario Kart.
I was going to say, what games are coming out?
And the next Mario Kart it's what? It's like $80 to $90? Absurdity. For Mario? Absurdity.
Is there a new Super Smash coming out with it?
I don't know.
Okay.
I have heard nothing other than the Mario Kart.
I really want to get a Nintendo system at some point so I can play some iteration of Super Smash with my family because I have so many great memories of playing that in
At this
college.
point, just buy a Wii on eBay.
I might as well because they still work. I mean,
Or after this comes out, you can buy a Switch 1 on eBay.
yeah, they probably plummet in price.
But Ethan, no, I wouldn't say that that's worth it.
Don't wrap up your value, your self-worth in the stuff that you own.
Yeah, what a heartfelt takeaway for this. You in the back with your hand raised. Sorry, I don't know your name yet. What's your question, Day?
I'm so glad you had that just ready to go.
You're welcome. What would my takeaway be from this? Keep asking questions, people. Because there's always more to learn.
And we always will run into instances when we can't record a full episode and we need your questions. So keep content coming.
That's more to the point.
I think we sign off from here, right?
Without further ado.
All right. Thank you for your questions, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Class dismissed.